It's part 3 of daily number 563, where we've seen how this game logically got to the weird position. I'd probably say the one thing that I haven't talked about a lot that is the biggest contributor to this is simply the map architecture. 2 players spawning in close positions. Grubby has really no easily accessible third base, so he's going for a lot of 2-base tactics very well. We've disabled the sound right now because when we turn it on, it sounds like this. Look, it's at 0%, alright? Just ignore it. Ignore everything. I'm not going to talk anymore. I just quit. Alright, cool. So, in this position, Grubby's doing a very reasonable move. He's just trying to shove in. Let me try to put it at 1% and hope it doesn't explode anyone's ears. Oh god, I'm like scared. I'm like so scared the sound's going to explode. So cKiLLeR is just waiting for this Baneling speed. Again, Banelings seem a little bit counterintuitive, but there's really not all that many sentries. And I want you to think about the way that Force Field works for Banelings. With Banelings, you want to Force Field and have the Banelings on the other side, which means that the entire Zerg army can retreat against Force Fields. Contrast this with Roaches, where you slice armies in half, where you slice them in between, and you pick off the ones on the inside. So most of the Zerg army cannot retreat. These movements by cKiLLeR are very smart. Why? It's all consistent with the statement, I want to deny you a third base. Oh, these poor orphan Banelings. Get out of there, Banelings. Get on the creep, Banelings. No! This was the one moment that I feel like really hurt cKiLLeR really, really badly in this spot. Where are the Mutalisks again? Oh, there they are. Lost a lot of Banelings. Just need a few extra seconds for that Baneling speed. So here they run in. I want you to just look at the way that these force fields are shaped. They're trying to push the Zerg army back. Sure, if there's a hole, they're going to roll right on in and deal massive damage. The Stalkers are clustered, so this punishes them. If, for some reason, there was a force field to clog that hole, this Zerg army would just have retreated. So anytime your opponent is... You're going Muta ling, and your opponent is low on gas, Banelings wind up being a great transition. Because he's got to build the Stalkers, and he doesn't have a lot of gas for much else. Now, cKiLLeR still theoretically in total control of this game, but he didn't scout the damn expansion. Grubby, no! Oh, cKiLLeR! cKiLLeR, I still think, played admirably. So, great. If I'm in cKiLLeR's shoes, I'm going to be continuing to monitor third bases. Look at this. Checks up here. Checks here, checking this vision, getting the vision, staying ahead in upgrades, and I would consider this Baneling speed an upgrade. Maybe a +1 attack or something like that would be reasonable for Mutas here, but then this is the real tragedy where the Mutalisks, or the Overlords end up spotting this. This is one of those, like, OF sort of moments. Why continued Mutalisk pressure? To continue to force Stalkers, which continue to force poor compositions. This, a little unfortunate, but not the biggest deal in the world. This, on the other hand, the biggest deal in the world. This is terrible news. So, of course, Grubby's going to try to target it as early as possible, hallucinate the Colossus to try to do little trickery. cKiLLeR didn't even really need to be in this position, but... Now Grubby is doing another smart sort of tactical play. I've been talking a lot of it from cKiLLeR's point of view, but... From Grubby's point of view, wants to withstand as much damage as possible. But anytime you have an opposite map expand, counterattack is the way to get value out of it. And that's sort of a weird term that I guess is more used in poker than in StarCraft. But you can get value out of an expansion by, 1, getting money from it because it's an expansion, or by 2, counterattacking, and he'll loses more from your counterattack than he gains by killing it off. Think for a moment about Mutalisk Zergling. Expanding to opposite corners of the map is really normal. Everyone's sort of seen that sort of thing, but with, like, Stalker Colossus, it might seem weird, but the same logic applies. So, in fact, Grubby is starting to push down. This attack, in essence, is a way to defend this expansion. So notice that he's just sort of chilling here. He has a stalker kind of poaching ahead, kind of leading, kind of getting up here, checking these bases. Might very well pull back a little bit, might very well reposition. Long-range mining, makes sense, seems good. And then the Mutalisks pop in here, so Grubby, upon microing here a little bit, then goes, alright, cool. Killing off this base. Now, after this is killed off, where do we go next? The answer is here. We have to defend these probes. There's not really a huge reason to try to shove really hard in here unless we want to guarantee ourselves a base trade. We can poke, but our main goal is the retreat back. Our main goal is the retreat back, damn it, Grubby. I guess he does see the Mutalisks here. That's actually, I accept that that was an incorrect statement. These Mutalisks are clearly visible. When I said this pullback to these probes are correct, I was working under the assumptions that the Mutalisks would be gone or having pulled back, but that's actually, yeah, this is an incorrect statement by me, because obviously this attack is working and there's no threat, and I'm like, well, what? Oh, yeah, he can see the Mutalisks. If these Mutalisks pull back, I'd probably pull these back. Happy to eat my words and get the education from Grubby. So these Mutalisks start to pull back. So this is the danger period where Grubby's got to be like, I got to get home ASAP. These probes must begin getting into like a really, really safe location. So of course we see the pullback. Not going to go straight for the main, which seems like the jugular. And this is why I said the pullback is really important. Well, actually this doesn't matter so much. It's more this tab that's really there. 29 workers is all we have. So it's a no base versus no base situation. Alright, cool. When no one has any bases, join these armies together. And a big thing is, what is our goal? Denying expansions and trying to get up an expansion. So I think from the Zerg point of view, I think it's pretty clear that the Mutalisks are our big tool, and we're still trying to monitor for those thirds. So these overlords, they can split up. Super critical. What is going to be our tech choice? Likely long-range mining and just adding on a couple more Zerglings here or there. This base isn't that critical to kill off. It's not like he has amazing production, but anytime we see one of these, we should be like, ah. And likewise, Grubby, just going to pull back, and whatever resource he has, he's going to go for that. Now, in this position, there's a number of different ways we can be in this spot. We can be up against roaches, we could be up against Hydralisks, we could be up against Zerglings, we could be up against Mutaling. Whatever the choice may be, we want to optimize how our resources are set up in these super low econ situation. Against roaches, I'd probably spam the hell out of sentries and just never have an engagement that went poorly ever again. Against a sort of Hydra Roach army, I'd probably get mostly sentries and try to get out one more Colossus. So I can basically be going Sentry Colossus. And of course, cKiLLeR XDDDDDD. Against Mutaling Baneling, Archons are a sensible choice, but I also think Blink is one of those utility moves here that makes a lot of sense. Interesting tidbit, if we get Baneling speed, Protoss cannot really blink aggressively anymore. He has to blink a little bit more defensively, because he can't run the risk of blinking forward, and then there's a bunch of Banelings there, and you just pick them off. Similarly, if you're Zerg and he has blink, try to have your Banelings close to the front line, so that way, if he blinks forward, he loses all his shit. Yeah. I'd also note that in this position, kind of weird, if, for instance, in this position, here's some interesting micro moments. Let's say Grubby had blink. Right here, it's very tempting to blink into this pocket to try to pick off some Mutalisks. A little risky. A little bit risky. Grubby can see that this path is clear, so he's not that worried about Zerglings, but he does have to worry about units coming up and cutting over like this. Fortunately, because this is a pocket, force fields can protect like that. So this is actually a decent spot to blink. However, I think generally it's a little safer to simply not blink in that position and to keep the army together, because we don't even really want to run the risk of losing any units. It's almost more important to keep units alive than it is to pick off these sorts of units. And ＫiLLeR, likewise, does another nice move. Just constant harassment this whole time. That period where I was like, blah, 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 might be a good spot to blink. Remember how I told you earlier that KiLLeR was really good about checking those third bases? He's similarly good about, in these econ spots, about making sure that he's assaulting economy. Making sure he's hitting what's important. Actually, you know, the tab seems reasonable to have open. So everything KiLLeR's really doing is just trying to deny, buy himself more time. And then the Mutalisk can spring right in as well. So, sort of similar kind of setup from before. If I had my choice, if I were a Zerg player, probably the next spot I'd want to expand to is here. So Protoss has like a really tough decision. Here is probably not where I'd want it be expanding. As weird as that looks from a normal point of view in this super low econ situation. I mean, this guy doesn't even have a base. Mothership Core, good unit. So KiLLeR can just easily take these sorts of situations, take these sorts of setups in production. We see Mutalisk being added on one at a time, makes perfect sense. If we run out of this Zergling-Baneling mix, I would immediately start spawning some Zerglings, even though we have this gas up here, because we really want those two air and ground prongs. And at this point, it's just all frickin' rough micro. It's all very difficult micro from start to finish. And this is where the commentary sort of elapses. Grubby basically says, I have enough of a force to attack and enough of a force to defend, so let's go for it. So most of what we've been talking about is the sort of decision-making related to what units we have, what units he has, how much money we have left in the bank. And here Grubby just does some nice micro. So in terms of the micro decisions, whatever's closest should be the target of the Mutalisks. If the sentries and stalkers are equally close, we try to pick off sentries like that, because they're weakest. If you're still doing larva injects in a spot like this, don't. Save for the transfuse. So the Stalker, I mean, we want to be trying to get units a little bit out of the way. So anything that's the closest is the target. So if we pull down like this, things that are points like this, good angles to go for. As Zerg, you want to be looking for those points. That's what KiLLeR is looking for. As Protoss, you want to be moving forward and doing damage, and then rounding your army. Like literally making it into like a round shape. Points are to be avoided. This is a really interesting judgment call from KiLLeR. He's looking at this going, oh, your sentry has no energy, so now I can roll in and get some significant damage on those. Target firing of the Archons, generally a good idea, but you know, the last Archon moved in. I do think it could have been a very interesting moment back here a little ways to try to get an extra Baneling, or to have gotten one less Mutalisks and a few extra Banelings when this attack started to come up. But not that big of a deal. Really hard to make that sort of decision in this spot. Because normally with like 9 Stalkers against, you know, 15 Mutalisks, the Mutalisks will be okay, but the Archon showed up and kind of ruined the days. So now it's Queen Transfuse. Steel, incredibly good. Look at this. With 28 supply, still there, very adamantly, preventing mining. And then eating one shot is basically good game from the Archon. So good. So good. Unit tab, I guess it's, there's a Zergling. Found him. Still checking for bases. KiLLeR, you hero. So very odd low econ game where the Protoss never really had a third base except for a hidden one down in the corner. Oh, here's something cool. You can barely snipe Archons if you just get their shot cycles, if you sneak in between there. So here's the shot, and then you can snipe. And then there's a shot, and then you can snipe. So you'll actually see ＫILLeR do that. Right here, here's the shot. See, Grubby's actually trying to get the Archons not to shoot. There's the shot. There's the shot, and then he shoots. And then see that? You can get in between. So here's the shot on the layer, and he gets in between. There's the shot. But unfortunately, a lot beats a little. So that's the end. That's the end. Let's go ahead and take some questions. Yeah, let's get the Markio question grabber up in this bad boy. F5, F5. So yeah, end of the game sort of faded down. Really fun in the moment of playing, but in the moment of watching when we have complete vision, it's kind of like, well, it's difficult for... it's difficult, truly, for the Zerg to come back. Prometheus0099 says, Day9, do you think Grubby's hidden expo is the only thing that saved him? If ＫILLeR just scouted it, do you think he would have won? I definitely think that he would have won, were that the case. I think that Grubby, though, did lose a little bit more in fights than he really needed to. And I think a lot of it comes back to that one time when if the Mothership Core had just a little bit more energy, a recall would have been able to save him. So, yeah. That's what I think about that. I probably have to go in there and look a little bit closer. I think that in that position, I almost do like transitioning to Blink over Colossus, just because we've already invested so much in the Gateway Immortal force field tech that that it may have been a little bit more comfortable and safe, because in the same vein as that we see the Zerg is behind on expansions, we don't really need that many Zealots to be in a pretty comfortable position against some Zealots and Stalkers, and we have enough force fields to kind of shove them back. It's a little bit tough. That's a little bit tough. Let me go ahead and turn on the slow mode. Let's get some questions. Oh, hey, State of the Game is on. Go to twitch.tv/itmejp. Yeah. Let's see here. Fear Dragon 64 says, Day9, when going Banelings against Stalkers, aren't there concerns of being kited by Blink? Especially if we've gone Muta and it seems like an expected tech path. Well, it's not going to be just Banelings. It's also going to be like Ling Muta Baneling. And if he blinks away, then you can just sort of like pull back and rearrange your army and go in again. The important thing is that the sentries cannot blink. And the sentries are really the thing that in the thick of a fight can protect you against Baneling, Zergling Muta. So yeah, I still really like Banelings. I really don't like the way that I'm dropping frames. Let's take two more questions. Two more questions. And then I think I'm going to get food. Oh, that sounds so good. Oh, that sounds so good. ThunderBear321, I take this question because your name is ThunderBear. Besides missing the scout on the Hidden Expo, are there any other mistakes KILLeR made which he could have avoided that possibly could have given him the win? I think that the big ones are having a little bit more vision control that would have allowed him to deflect attacks a little bit more easily. And most importantly, tossing down an evolution chamber and getting an upgrade would have been, you know, like 2 less Hydras. And the scouting would have made up for that, that loss rate a little bit. But I think most importantly of all, there would have been more efficiency as the game went on. Because KILLeR was just at 0-0 for the whole game. So that's why. Expos, upgrades, vision. Let's do another question. Sakharoth says, Day9, was there an opportunity during that game where Grubby could have safely gotten a third base? I think it relates back to that one recall that was missed down at the south base. Remember the attack that I was like, look how good this is. It sets up the pylon, and then he pulled back and swung around. If he had more units in the pullback swing around, he could have gotten a third up while he was doing that. Yeah. So that's what I think about that. I'm hungry. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow I'll be doing my playthrough of Dark Souls. On Monday, if you'd be so kind, is to submit to me a game of you giving me your best epic Widow Mine game. So this would be any game where you'll use a lot of Widow Mines for epic connections, huge blasts, just really cool strats, a really cool, funny, hilarious, weird game there where you saved yourself from a Widow Mine. Submit those to Monday at day9.tv. Please go to the day9.tv website. Let me know. Fun Day Monday topics. Let me know thoughts you have on the Widow Mine thing, or just hang out there, because that's probably where I'll be hanging out. That's my thing. And I am done. Thanks so much for tuning in. Wonderful to have had you. Show is done. Bye-bye.